Home inspections. Kyle, why should a buyer get an inspection?
So inspections come up after you make an offer. As part of your offer, you put in there that you want the offer and the contract to be contingent on the home passing an inspection. And by passing an inspection, it means that the findings of the inspection make you comfortable with moving ahead. So in Chicago, there are a bunch of reasons to get it. Number one, you got to know what you're buying. This is going to be the biggest purchase of a lot of people's lives, and you got to know what you're buying because you don't want to get a money pit. Two, Chicago is a city and in a region of weather. And weather, as we've seen recently, Miami, we talked about, wreaks havoc on buildings. And so you need an inspection for that. What do you think? What are some of the things you would say?
There are a couple of reasons that I look at an inspection. You don't want any big surprises that are going to put you in a horrible position financially. And that might be, for example, I had a house that was poorly constructed with split face block, and the inspector estimated $100,000 repair. I don't care what your purchase price is. $100,000 for a necessary repair is crazy for most people. So it prevents you from getting into a pickle. The second thing that I really look to for inspections is it helps you understand your home so that you can maintain it. These inspectors will go through and they will tell you, here's the filter, change the filter, here's how you do it. Here's your water shut off, here's your sewer clean out. This is what you need to do. Your roof has a tear off and you're only 5 years in, so you've got 15 more years on this roof. Or the furnace is, 12 years in, the useful life of a furnace is 15 years. So you're going to have to think about replacing it. An inspection is not always to do an up or down on the house. It's also to help you learn about the home, to maintain the home, and to feel comfortable about your purchase.
And that's why you and I really strongly encourage our buyers to attend the inspection. Because a lot of the inspectors, especially the good ones, the ones we'll recommend, are teachers too. To just the point that Ann made, will teach you about a home, and not everybody knows about a home and how it works. Yeah.
Well, right. Especially in our marketplace where people are in a condo and then they buy a house. They're like, all of a sudden, how do I manage this thing?
I don't know what I would do.
The reason we live in a condominium is we just hand over our money every month and say, take care of it. But you get into a single family home and it's like, whoa.
Yes.
Okay. So what to expect with an inspection? Inspections can range, like if you're in a 1-bedroom condominium where the heat and the air from the building, you could be done in an hour, because inspectors do not inspect common areas of the condominium if you're in a high rise. So in terms of time, it can be, there's one inspector in Chicago who's notorious, and I was at a 2-flat in Bridgeport, and he was there for 7 hours doing an inspection. Now that's the longest I've ever had. I'd say if you're in a single family home, expect 2.5, 3, maybe 4 hours is a typical, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
You mentioned attending the inspection, and I wholeheartedly concur. Buyers should always attend their inspections if at all possible. We've had lately with some COVID, some buyers out of town, and so we've used FaceTime and some other opportunities for buyers to be there virtually, but I would say yes. Okay. Anything else on what to expect, Kyle?
Yes. So inspectors that we recommend are certified by there's an inspector association. I'm sorry, I don't remember.
American Society of Home Inspectors or International Association of Certified Home Inspectors.
Them. Yeah. But they have best practices, checklists, etc. And so they will run through the checklist and they will identify for you everything that isn't perfect because that's their job. Now, people live with all sorts of imperfections all the time. And so, and my God, if you had a perfect home, there are none. Let's just be honest. So it's not the number of defects. It is the severity that will impact one, the value of the home, and two, your ability to maintain it. So you're looking for, everyone wants an inspector with judgment. They're going to call out in the report every defect, but they will also tell you about the ones you should care about, the ones that will matter to you. And that's another reason to be there, to see this person say, this is one, pay attention to this. So anyway, yeah.
No, that's exactly right. And there are a couple that pop up all the time in our home inspections, and they're nothing to get too crazy about. For example, having a handrail on your staircases everywhere is code. And if there's no staircase there, the inspector will point it out. Is that an earth-shattering problem? No. Can that easily be fixed for a few dollars? Yes. The other one is, there's something about how they hook up the dishwasher, and I don't even understand it, but it comes up in every inspection. And the last inspection I had, the inspector said, we have got to tell apps they've got to install their dishwashers differently, because, it's somebody who knows what they're doing. It's not homeowners that are putting in their dishwashers. And it's not
either we have to tell apt, or we have to tell the city code there's nothing wrong with installing it the way apt installs it.
Yeah, exactly. But it's on every inspection. It just makes me laugh. So so what inspectors look at? They're looking at everything in a home. And as I said, they talk about useful life, heating system, cooling system, basically mechanicals and structure. They don't care much about the decorating. Expect and even ask a home inspector if they have the gizmo to check moisture in the walls. A good inspector will have that, right? Yeah. And they're going to look, when we go in a home, we tend to look straight ahead or down at the flooring and whatever. We forget to look up sometimes. So they'll look up. And again, an inspector is going to help you put it in perspective. I've been in old vintage homes where they put the marble down and it rolls, because the floor is not even, but it's a 120-year-old property that isn't going anywhere, so they'll help you understand that. The other kind of quirky thing is, inspectors may not agree with one another. I have had homes where they've gotten to the inspection and then fallen apart, and then a different inspector came in the next time, and they find different things because there are different things on their minds or whatever. One I had said that a structural beam wasn't sufficient and it needed to be, propped up, and the other one said, oh, that's not a problem at all. So,
Well, we have had, so home inspectors are humans too. And what I don't want for my buyer or seller is a home inspector who's out to prove that he's the smartest guy ever, he or she, smartest person ever, because they make everything a disaster. And not everything is a disaster, because people have lived in this home for a period of time and nothing has happened. And it's how we live. So it's really the inspector who tells you the things that are important.
Right.
And fills you in on everything, but tells you what's important. And that's the judgment that's so helpful.
Exactly right. For example, if there are no carbon monoxide detectors in the home and there's something not quite right about the flue on the furnace that could bring carbon monoxide back in the house, that's the kind of thing you want to know about. Right? Or things on the roof that you can't see when you're there looking at the pretty house, but they can see that there's all kinds of moisture coming in or whatever.
Yeah. Yes.
As you said, Kyle, most of the time that's not happening. People are living in these homes and they're taking care of them and everything is fine. So I guess that's all we need to say on that.
What should we expect as a home seller? Because I think sellers don't have an idea of what's going to happen.
Yeah, you put this in here, and I thought that was a great idea to talk about this.
Well, so one of the things that the home inspector cannot, if they cannot have access to something, they can't inspect it. Right. And if you can't inspect it, you can't get a green light on that thing. So, if you don't have a way to access the attic, they'll say, I have no idea what's in the attic. And then
Right.
they're going to have to do it again. So it's in your interest as a home seller to make the home accessible so that the home inspector can look at everything.
Right.
So,
and some examples of that would be, where is the electrical panel? That may be hidden in a closet or somewhere. Let's know and tell us, the agents, so that the inspector can know. Another one is the clean out. And this is in the house where they go down and rot out the sewer lines. So like the tree roots that are getting in there, they can clean all that out. Sometimes in an inspection, they'll go in and they'll scope it. So they need to know where that is. What else would you say? What else did I leave out?
There are a lot of people who've moved out of their home and they'll turn off the utilities. And so one of the things that an inspector does is check every outlet, check all that the utilities work. And if the utilities are off, they can't do an inspection. So
absolutely right.
You got it. And I was actually, interestingly, at an inspection where the basement was, so the house looked beautiful on the inside because everything was in the basement. And the basement was floor to ceiling stuff. But there were key things. The utilities were, access points were in the basement. And the basement had, was, from the building was from the teens or 20s of last century. And so there were asbestos tiles. There were all sorts of things that weren't deal killers, but we couldn't see, so we had to come back again. And you just got to make it available.
Sure.
So
and you bring up a good point. I mean, if everything is accessible, and here's another one. This is a simple one. Put light bulbs in, make sure all your lights work. Because they'll put on the report, oh, can't tell if this light works. They don't know if the light is out, if there's an electrical problem, or it's just a light bulb. So if you replace your light bulbs prior to the inspection, it's just less that they're going to have to worry about.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Which gets us to, how do you as a seller improve the report?
Well, I've got a listing that's about to come on the market. They did a pre-listing inspection because it's a house that is beautiful, in good shape, but they want to get rid of all the little things, address the little things that will become a source of negotiation once they go on the market. They want to clean it up, get it ready so that everything looks perfect. What do you say?
Yeah, well, in a perfect world, yes, pre-inspection, but if you've been maintaining your home and you can show the HVAC maintenance records, if, again, you've repaired all the little things that are, jiggly, like cabinet doors or, any closet doors that are sticking or whatever, make sure your windows are opening properly, just all the little stuff of maintaining a home is going to go a long way to making the inspector, because these inspectors will say, wow, this home's been really well maintained, or, they'll say that and make the buyer feel really good about their home purchase. So don't think as a seller that these are big, scary deals. They can actually be a good way to really solidify that buyer's intent to buy.
And they can also help when when there's a little bit of negotiation, you're pushing back, the buyer's not going anywhere. They want that house.
Right.
Yeah. Excellent.
So as you said, no home is perfect.
No home is perfect. And buyers have to remember this, sellers have to remember this, but if you want top dollar, seller, get your home ready to be inspected and get it ready to be marketed.
Right. Everything can be fixed for a price.
Yes.
Speaking of price, cost of inspection.
Well, it depends on the size, where it is, who you're dealing with, how busy the inspectors are. Right now, inspections are pretty expensive because there's so many properties being inspected.
Right.
But for a small condo, the 1-bedroom condo, you'll pay in the $200 to $350 range. And for a house, you should expect to pay in the $600 to $800 and more, depending on the additional inspections you have to do. What are you seeing?
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on. Spot on. Let's talk about choosing your inspector.
Mm-hmm.
How do you choose your inspector?
Well, there are two great websites, one for American Society of Home Inspectors and the International Association of Certified Home Inspectors. And, you know, if you Google Home Inspector Association, these two sites will come up. But also, we have a list of people who have worked for our clients, buyers and sellers, and worked well. And we keep that for you. And then you can decide amongst those people who you'd like to hire. So there are a bunch of ways you can find these people.
Yeah, and I would just add I agree with everything you said. We have come across inspectors who are alarmists, who have egos, who just want to show you everything they know about inspecting. And we would not guide you to those. We represent you, the buyer. And so when we recommend an inspector to you, we really want you to have somebody who finds everything that is potentially wrong with the home, because we believe you should be fully informed when you're buying. And again, everything is fixable for a price, and we'll get to that in a second, but we certainly have great recommendations for you.
Yeah.
You mentioned before other inspections.
Yes.
There's the home inspection, and sometimes the inspector says, well, I have a question about this, so maybe you need to bring in da-da-da-da-da. Tell us about that, Kyle.
Well, there are a couple of ones that you don't actually need to have a home inspector suggest. For example, radon. There are certain neighborhoods where radon, a natural gas, is present. And the tricky thing about radon is it can be cancer causing. If you don't take steps in an area that has radon to dissipate radon.
Yeah.
There are things one can do. Even if they find elevated radon levels, there are things you can do to make the home safe for people. But anyway, there's a radon inspection in certain areas. You really got to do it, but it can appear anywhere. And
let me just say this too. City of Chicago, chances are you're not going to find it. If you're on the 3rd floor or below, we have a radon inspection. But you know, in Oak Park, we get it frequently. And there are a lot of mitigation systems in homes in Oak Park.
Yeah. So it exists. And we would never tell you don't do a radon inspection as a buyer. Termites. So it depends on the structure of the home. But termites, especially for a much older home that has wood construction, it's just worth knowing. Sometimes you can wait for the home inspector to say, oh, I'm seeing evidence of termite infestation. But sometimes you just might do that yourself.
Oh, you know what? Here's a story that I haven't told in ages. You know, we lived in a 1908 house in Lakewood, Balmoral. When we bought the house, it was a multiple offer situation. We paid over list price. We were in love with this home. But it's the only time in my real estate career I've seen this. Every 10 inches, there was a little hole drilled just above the baseboards all around the house. And they thought it was to mitigate carpenter ants. But
no,
we never saw carpenter ants. So anyway, so that was kind of an interesting thing. All right, asbestos. Asbestos, we generally don't have a separate inspector, but if your inspector, the one you work with, will be experienced enough to be able to say, I have concerns that it's a potential problem, bring in someone, or let's test for it.
Mm-hmm. Water damage, lead. We don't have so much of a lead paint issue, but lead piping. It's sometimes worth knowing if the line to the house is a lead pipe, and that's sometimes worth knowing if you want to put in a water filtration system.
Right. Mold inspections are generally not done, but if an inspector sees something that leads them to believe there might be a mold problem, then we would encourage you to get an additional mold inspection.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not a typical extra inspection in Chicago. And any other safety issues, I've had a couple of times where we've brought structural engineers in just to make sure that, you know, the roof can hold the weight.
And roof, sometimes a roof, if it's an old roof or you don't know the age of the roof, you want somebody to come in and look at it. Fireplace, same thing. Especially if they do not have records, you want to check it out. Right. Next steps after a home inspection.
So you get the inspection and it's going to have, here are the serious things to be concerned about. Here are all the other things that are just things I noticed. So at that point, Kyle, what do you do?
So your agent, and or me. We will work with you and the lawyer to identify the things that are negotiation points if we're representing the buyer. If we're representing the seller, we don't see the inspection unless we ask for it.
And
they're not allowed to give it to us unless we ask for it. I have in the past actually asked for it and then used it with when I was trying to sell a property to say, these are the issues that were found by the last person. And actually we got more because we had identified all the issues and people were much more confident that the property was in good shape. But anyway, so then you just negotiate the final details of the contract. And
usually through the attorney, but sometimes we get involved as well.
We help facilitate it, make it palatable.
Right. But most importantly, the inspection is your guide. It solidifies your thought process on the purchase. It prevents you from having huge problems, and it's an important component of the home buying process.